me doing my homework, delving and delving and delving and delving. And in that era, there was websites that actually sold and marketed, you know, their capabilities of, you know, selling dumps, which is quote unquote credit card numbers. I went on one site and, you know, there was a messaging technology that was pretty much a Russian technology, and in which where you could message the, you know, all of the different hackers and so forth. And so when I messaged him, how I met the individual, when I messaged him, he hit me back. And so he was like, I said, well, I need 50 cards. And so he sent them to me, and I hadn't even sent him the money. And I must have made maybe about $6,000-7,000 off of them. And he said, yeah, brother, woo, you owe me this. And I was like, okay, cool. So I sent him the money. And from there, he would just send them. And so when he got to the point to where he couldn't actually pay for, you know, the server space to be able to run the equipment and all of the gear to be able to, you know, plan all of the malware throughout all of the posits that, you know, was pretty much worldwide, I just pretty much took over all of that aspect of it on the billing end of it. And then from there, he was able to pretty much access, you know, my computer, you know, remotely. And then step by step, I was able to learn everything exactly what he was doing. And it was crazy because when you look at it, it's like if me and you standing on a block. But imagine having a big, huge ring full of keys. And each one, well, not a huge ring. Let's just say we got at least 5 keys. Mm-hmm. But we go to each back door and we try each key. And then every time it would crack, on my screen would say vulnerable. And then it's like us going to all of them. And so imagine doing that times 100,000 and then times 1,000,000. Imagine going to 1,000,000 back doors trying those keys. And so, yeah, I knew the vulnerabilities inside of Microsoft's system. And so once I understood that, and then from there, he would sit there and explain to me how to actually use, you know, all of the different technology and the malware that be added to it. And pretty much it was a game changer for me because it was lights out because every time you would go inside of a store, a lot of you don't even realize it, but you take your card and imagine you going in there and you just paying for some milk and some cookies or whatever it may be. Well, when you slide that magnetic strip sends out a series of codes, which is a track 1 or track 2. And that information goes to a processor. Well, I would get inside of that line, and when that information would go to the processor, it would also go to me. It'd go to the processor and it'd go to me, and imagine all of the people that walk in the store in a day.
So you pretty much had access to the terminals that were in the stores.
Yeah, it's a POS, a point of sales.
Wow. So let me ask you this. You mentioned that you made money off of these cards. How would a person make money off of a credit card?
Pretty much, you know, we use a machine, and then I would take that machine and you could actually encode any magnetic strip with a code of numbers, which is a series of numbers which identifies every individual. So let's just say the first track would have your name on it, your last name, your first name with a series of numbers, and then there would be another one. And that would be the BIN. And at the beginning numbers is the bank identification number. And then a series of numbers that would actually lead to that account. So I would just use track two on everything. I made it a lot easier. I didn't need all of that. And I would just go into a store, 7-Eleven, and I would take 30 gift cards that was on the shelf that had never been opened or never been touched. And I just put them in a grocery bag and walk out the store with them or anywhere I would see them. And then when I would get back to my lab, I would just open them up, and with a program placed on the laptop, it would be plugged into a box. And whenever I would swipe it, it'd go bloop, bloop, bloop. And all of that information, track 1, track 2, well, I was only using track 2, it would be on that card. And from there, I would give that card to my crew of individuals, and they would pretty much go on shopping sprees all day.
So you guys would go on shopping sprees and pretty much resell the items that you procured during those visits?
Not really the item so much, it would just be on a shopping spree for gift cards. So, you know, I would never send a broad up in there with some booty shorts into, you know, Bloomingdale. Actually, you had to dress the part. So I would make sure that she had her hair nice and that she looked like she was someone who had a $5,000 credit card or had access to a $5,000 or $10,000 credit card. And so much, pretty much essentially, once she would just slide that card, it would ring up the sale, and then she would buy items to disguise the bigger play. The bigger play was the actual gift card. So being able to get a $500 Bloomingdale card, which would pretty much retail on the streets for about $300 or $250 or whatever, 60% or half of it. So imagine she got 3 $500 Home Depot cards, a few $100 Bloomingdale and Nordstrom's cards, walk inside a Walmart, and pretty much you could buy these cards when you buy another product. So at that time, I would let them keep all of the merchandise. All I wanted was a third, a third, a third, a third for me, a third for you, a third for the actual game, pretty much the cost of everything. So it was a third, a third, a third, a split. And so pretty much essentially they would keep 2/3 and I would keep 2/3.
Okay, now at your peak, how much money would you say this operation was grossing for you a month?
It varies. I mean, because I was sending cards with females, you know, the federal government, all of this is documented. And also I was selling cards to other individuals. You know, I was selling 54,000, so probably about 100,000, maybe 100, if shorter, maybe anywhere around like 85, 90, somewhere around there.
Oh wow, man! So you really had an elaborate system going.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know you have this going on. What was your run like? How many years was you doing it successfully?
It wasn't a very, very long run, man. I mean, it was probably about a good 2-3 year run. And, you know, it wasn't a real long run because, you know, I guess the element of surprise is the surprise itself. So the individual, what brought the run pretty much to an end is the individual. I never forget, there was 2 locations in the Seattle area. And one of the locations, you know, I never forget this because it's so eerie. And I never forget getting a phone call from him. He said, I got 2 more spots. And so he had access to it. And when I went inside everything and I looked, I said, where did these cards come from? And when I'm, you know, taking the numbers and I'm looking, by this time I'm able to look at the first 3 digits of it. And so I know what's the bank, what banks they are. And I'm like, these not regular cards. These are business and corporate cards, pretty much, essentially. And so I'm running them. Boom, 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 boom. I'm running. I walk in a Walmart in, I think, Montclair, Claremont, California. And I walked in and I must have bought like 4 or 5 PlayStations. And then I must have bought about another 3 or 4 $500 gift cards myself, literally. And I'm like, damn. So the cards was, they was going. And to come to find out that the company that they came from had went and got a computer forensic expert that was able to trace back where the cards, where we planted the line and trace it all the way back to the actual server and trace it all the way back to his IP. And pretty much once that happened, yeah, it was pretty much everything was on a time clock pretty much. And once they gathered enough information and they grabbed him, he, you know, pretty much relinquished, you know, everything and pretty much essentially told on me.
Smooth Cut Productions.